Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. And with everything that's been going on, we know a lot of you have questions about the market, how your portfolio's doing, how your money's performing. Today, you're going to hear a lot about Philip's financial x-ray process and how that could help you get some answers. We'll probably answer some of your questions on the show today, but you can always reach out to 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815 to take advantage of the financial x-ray report. You can also check us out online at statlerfinancial.com. And with that, Philip, I hope all is well with you. You know, we've all been caught off guard at some point. It's not a good feeling. You freeze up.
That's for sure.
Right? You just freeze up like a deer in the headlights. Everything hits you all at once, and you just feel paralyzed. And this has happened to me so many times where I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. And I've been thinking about that, Philip, with everything that's been happening. People do get a little bit frozen, I think. How does this analysis paralysis impact people who need to make decisions about their retirement?
Well, it can be very dangerous, Jen. You know, people that get in that perspective of they're afraid to make a decision can be dangerous, right? I mean, especially if they're getting closer and closer to retirement and they're not taking some type of action to prepare. And then they do take some steps, but they don't follow through to finish the process. And so when that happens, you know, you've spent time and energy trying to accomplish something, but yet because you didn't follow through, you're no better off than when you started, and you've wasted really all that time and effort to try to move forward.
Yeah, it really is a frustrating situation. And here's the other thing, Philip, when there's so many things that are going on and people feel so overwhelmed, I think some people put off some of the planning and some of the things they need to do because they don't know what the process is like or how hard it might be, what the questions will be like. Can you talk a little bit about your office and what people can expect when they start to work with you and your team?
Sure, Jen. You know, it's a kind of a relaxed setting. You know, you're going to come into the office, and most days, Jen, they're going to be greeted by our four-legged greeter. You know, Charlie Sue is my golden doodle, and she comes to work with me almost every day. She does get a couple of days off here and there, but generally she's going to be here on the days that I'm seeing clients. And so she'll be here to greet you at the door. And some people, they're not really fond of dogs, and that's okay. We'll, if you're not, we'll take her and throw her in the back room, and she's okay there too. But she loves people. I mean, that's just her thing. You know, a lot of times you'll come in, we'll have a good selection of coffee and teas that you're welcome to. A great time just to sit and kind of relax a little bit before we get together. And then once we do kind of sit down in our conference room, then I'm going to find out what's important to you. What's really keeping you up at night? What are the things that are bothering you? And what can I do? How might I be able to fit in and to help you overcome some of these things that are really bothering people? And so that's really the initial part of our process, is that, you know, where are we at? What do you want to accomplish? And then to me, and the big part of our financial x-ray, Jen, is where are you at right now? Do you really know? And so often when I sit down with people, they don't really have a clue as to what they're invested in. What does that look like? You know, do they have a lot of risk, or do they have a lot of safety? So often folks don't know what they don't know until they go through our process. And then they get really kind of concerned about making sure that they're in the right spot. So, you know, the question really becomes, do you know how much risk is in your portfolio? Because that's why I designed the financial x-ray. is to be able to analyze your portfolio to make sure that it lines up with your risk tolerance. So give me a call and let's go through our risk analysis and our financial x-ray of your current portfolio. To do that, all you have to do is give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to schedule your no obligation financial x-ray to really determine how much risk is in your portfolio. That's 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services. I'm Jen Rezac alongside. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. They're also really active on Facebook. So if you're on there, just do a search for Statler Financial Services. They're always posting videos and news updates. And Philip, let's talk a little bit about the folks who are in there helping you. We know that you have your four-legged greeter there in your office, but talk a little bit about how you have set yourself up and a little bit about your approach as far as how you work with clients.
So when you come into our office, you're going to meet, let's just go through the kind of staffing. I've got Karen is usually the receptionist. She's at the front, will greet you along with Charlie Sue. Roxanne is my assistant, and she does a lot of our paperwork. Folks that need distributions, she's the person that they talk to get that taken care of. She's the paperwork person. She's going to take care of most of the paperwork that needs to be done as clients come into our office. Then we have Dasha. Dasha is, she does some tax work, but she's also the person that puts together our financial reviews. She helps me put together our financial plans, does a lot of the risk, the financial x-ray part. She'll help put that information into our system to help design and develop what your portfolio risk number really looks like. So that's kind of the staff we have right now. And it's ebb and flow, right? You just, with all that's going on right now, it's, it can be more and less as we move forward.
Talk a little bit about your financial x-ray report here as well, Philip, as we talk about the client experience, what people need to know about what this is like. Explain your financial x-ray report, what it does, and what it means for people who need some answers for their retirement.
So here's the gist of it. I really, when I developed this, I found that when I would meet with people, they really, number one, didn't know how much risk was in their current portfolio. Mm-hmm. Number two, they didn't know what their risk tolerance was. They didn't understand what that meant. Yeah, they had gone through, with their advisor, maybe a questionnaire or their financial or their 401k provider, they had a blanket questionnaire, and they'd answer those questions. At the end, it would say, you're moderately conservative or you're aggressive growth, but they didn't really know in numeric fashion what that meant. And so we went out and looked and found some providers that could quantify what risks look like in your portfolio. And so we've developed that along with our process to determine what your risk number is on the scale of 0 to 100. And we apply that same process to your current portfolio. And it gives us the risk number of your current portfolio. And we look at those two numbers to see, are they congruent? Do they line up? Or is there a disconnect there? Is there, your portfolio is a 20 and you're a 40. Well, that means you don't have enough risk in your current portfolio. 9 times out of 10, it's the other way around though, Jen. We find that somebody's a 20 or 25 and their portfolio is a 50, 60, or 70.
Oh, wow.
And so they've got too much risk in their portfolio. So that's one aspect of our financial x-ray. The second part of the financial x-ray is, how much are we paying in fees and expenses? And I find that most folks that I sit down with, they don't have any idea of what they're paying in fees and expenses within their portfolio, their financial products, whatever they have. That to me is problematic because every expense you're paying is taken away from your earnings. And so you want to make sure that what you're paying is lining up with what you expect, number one. And number two, how much is that affecting your returns in your current portfolio. I've gone way out there in developing this financial x-ray. And I did it because I just believe that people typically don't know what their risk number is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that they do. I mean, everything is based on that. When you're not working and you're retired, risk is very important. Now, when you're working, it's a different story, Jen, because you can take on a lot more risk when you are working every day, your paycheck's coming in. Hey, risk is set it, forget it. And, 20 years down the road and getting ready to retire, hopefully you've got a big nest egg there. But when you're getting ready to retire, risk plays such a vital role. And so many people don't know what that number is for them. And that's why we developed our financial x-ray. Give me a call and let's walk through that process. I mean, we've seen a lot of volatility this year. So let's take an opportunity now to determine how much risk you have in your portfolio and make sure it lines up with your risk number. Give me a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. One of the things I know is that in life, we need to be congruent, and your portfolio needs to be congruent with your risk tolerance. Give me a call and let's walk through that process together. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is with Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside that number again, 863-285-3815. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more, and they're also active on social media if you just search for Statler Financial Services on Facebook. Retirement, is a new phase of life, and anything new can make us nervous. It happens. Change is hard. But after the break, we're going to talk about how you can change up your routine so you can truly get ready for retirement. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show, and we'll be back. Will the presidential election results impact your retirement? Find out with a free guide from Philip Statler at StatlerFinancial.com. That's StatlerFinancial.com.
If you owe $26.5 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, what would you need to do? Well, you'd need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $26.5 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels. It doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services know what to look for. Plan now. Philip can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 863-285-3815 to set up a visit with Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services. When taxes go up, will you be ready? 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Statler Financial Services may not give tax advice.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He is the inaugural Highlander Award winner for Financial Representative of the Year. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. A lot of us are creatures of habit. We have our usual order at our favorite restaurant. We take our coffee a certain way. I don't know. Is that you, Philip? Do you like to try new things whenever you go to a restaurant, or do you have your standard, your usual, don't mess with it?
I have a couple standards depending upon the restaurant I go to.
Sure.
If I'm paying for it, I want to make sure I know what I'm getting. Now, if I'm at an event or something and they've got something new and hey, you want to try this? I'm willing to try new stuff. I'd rather try it on somebody else's dime.
There you go. That makes perfect sense. And I'm kind of the same way. I like to try new things, but man, when it comes to stuff like how I take my coffee, don't mess with it. Like, I know what I like. I don't need to mess with that.
Yeah. So. Hey, coffee, don't mess with that, man. It's it is what it is.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Don't do that.
Well, and it's easy to be that way with a lot of things. We don't always like to switch banks or accountants or doctors because you get used to working with someone. You get used to how things are done. I recently had to see a new dental hygienist, and man, it was just not what I was used to. She didn't even ask me what flavor tooth polish that I wanted, and she just made an assumption and she guessed wrong. So, those kinds of things are frustrating.
Black mark, right?
Oh, yeah. No, don't like that. But, when we're thinking about what we do with our money, and as we get closer to retirement, we might think about changing things up. We may have been working with someone for a long time, Philip, helping us with growing our money and putting more money away. But talk about why we might want to break out of that routine when it comes to planning for retirement.
Jen, we talk about that quite a bit on the show, and that there's two segments. Well, there's more than two segments in your life, but the two segments I focus on, right, is that segment before retirement and the segment after retirement. And that becomes the retirement kind of is the center peak of the mountain. And that becomes the focus, is that when we're working, we focus on the top of the mountain. Like, I want to get to retirement. I can't wait to get to retirement, right? Then when we get there, then we have to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to come off of that mountain, because more people die coming down the mountain than going up the mountain. Folks that are working and they have an advisor, that's great. Those folks are a lot of those guys out there are good and great at getting you to retirement. But it's a whole different strategy. It's a different philosophy. It's a different mentality when you get 5 years out from retirement. What are we going to do? How are we going to switch gears going into retirement? How do we prepare? What changes do we make when it comes to the risk in our portfolio? How do we create the income that's going to provide for that paycheck that we're not going to get anymore? It's a different process than the folks out there when they're working.
Right.
And so that's why it's important that when you get 5 to 10 years out from retirement, you start talking to folks, advisors, that is their primary focus is retirement income planning, because it's different than when you're working. And that's really and truly a lot of what we do. I'm going to say probably 90% of the folks we work with are working with us because we've put together an income plan for them. And that income plan is what they're living off of today in retirement.
And Philip, when you talk about that mountain analogy and the fact that more people are injured coming back down the mountain, and we just try to visualize what's happening with our retirement money that way, it's one of those things where I have heard you say that so many times on this show, and I know I've told you this before, but I didn't fully understand that analogy. It wasn't real to me until I actually experienced it for myself, going and climbing a mountain with one of my kids. And all day long, we were out in Colorado. This was several years ago. All day long, we'd been told, we're only halfway there when we get to the top. And I heard our guides say that, but I was so focused on the summit. I was so focused on the top, and we got up there and we celebrated. I had to bribe my daughter with a fancy coffee after we got back down because she didn't want to keep going. But I said, no, we got to get up here. We celebrated. We took selfies. We took pictures. We enjoyed the view. We took it all in and just basked in what we had accomplished to get up to the top of that mountain. And then we turned around and looked down, and that's when it really hit me that, yeah, he was right. we have a lot of work to do, and everything changed. And I wonder how many people experience that with retirement, where they hear someone like you talking about this all the time, that, oh, everything's going to change and we have a lot to do. But until they're at the doorstep of retirement, it doesn't fully sink in. Does that happen to people, do you think?
It does. And a lot of times, even after they pull the trigger and they retire, sometimes it still takes a little time for it to really sink in. And unfortunately, that's not a good thing. I tell people, look, there's what I call the retirement danger zone. And that's the 10 years before you're getting ready to retire and the 10 years after you retire. That 20-year time span is so important. I still remember speaking with a gentleman. He was actually a retired doctor. And when I sat with him, he had, this was 09. So we'd gone through the 08 crash, right? And so I'm sitting there talking with him and looking at his portfolio. And he told me, he said, Phil, back in the first of 2008, I had more than double what I have right now. And because he was taking income out of that portfolio, it had devastated his income. Well, it devastated what was left in his portfolio because of that time period right after he retired that was a down market. So if that happens to you before retirement, you can decide, well, I'm going to work a little longer. But if it happens to you after retirement, what do you do? That's why it's important that you have a plan in place. And that's really what we focus on is kind of, putting together that income plan.
If you have questions about how to get started with putting together that income plan, the number to call to reach Philip Statler is 863-285-3815. Again, that's 863-285-3815 to talk a little bit about what's going on with your income. How can you make sure that you've got enough? How do you make sure that income is secure? That number again, 863-285-3815. Philip, when we talk a little bit about what it is that people need in terms of how much they need for their retirement, I think about someone who might want to travel, and I know some of that might be a little uncertain right now, but there are people who want to maybe invest in a lake home or a vacation home, or there are people who might want to travel and see some different things in the world. And then I think about someone like my mother-in-law who recently retired, and really, for her, being retired just means an escape from other people. Like they have some land. She likes to spend some time out on the land, maintaining it, taking care of it. Really, she doesn't have a cell phone. She doesn't carry anything out there with her. She just enjoys that solitude and enjoys that ability to get out there and take care of things. That's not a very expensive lifestyle, Philip. So talk a little bit about how someone like my mother-in-law, but someone who doesn't need to spend a whole lot, still needs to plan, just like someone who's trying to travel a lot. It's just you have to know those details so you can make it custom for them, right?
Absolutely. We need to know what is their retirement plan. What are they going to do? I mean, that's why it's important that we have that conversation up front. Right? What are you going to do when you retire? What's important to you in retirement, and what's important to you about your money? And how's that going to help you accomplish what you want to do in retirement? Whether you're going to travel the world or, you're just going to find your little seclusion in the world, both cases, we need to understand what that looks like to you, what retirement looks like to you, because maybe you don't need income now, but none of us know from a healthcare perspective what life's going to throw us. And so we may need money down the road that we haven't even thought about. And so there's things like that we need to put into place through our planning process to make sure that we've got everything taken care of. And maybe it's just growing a bigger portfolio to give to your kids and your grandkids, while living off of less income because you're happy, just lack of a better term, like my dad likes to piddle, you piddle out there in the yard, or, you do that type of thing. And so that becomes your retirement. That's what you want to do. That's what you've looked forward to doing all your working career. And so we still need to have a plan in place to make sure you get to do it and do it in the style and the way you want to.
And let's talk a little bit about what this looks like as you're asking these questions. You're helping someone get an idea of not only what do they want to do, but also what are some of the other factors they might consider. Longevity. How likely is it that they might live a long life in retirement? How do we make sure, Philip, the income is going to last if we end up being in retirement for a very long time? It could be 30, 40 years in some cases.
You're so right, Jen. I mean, life expectancies continue to grow. And I sit down with folks, a lot of times they think, I'm not going to live that long. But none of us know that, Jen. We're not promised tomorrow.
Right.
So we need to have both perspectives. We need the perspective, okay, if I'm not in this world, 5 years from now, that's this scenario. But what if I live 30 years? I'm 95 years old. Man, would it be terrible to be 95 years old and have nothing left of your portfolio to live off of? And that's why it becomes so important that folks actually have a retirement income plan in place. And that's a rarity today. I see financial plans, don't get me wrong, I see big financial plans. Some of them are, 10, 15, 50 pages long. I mean, that's just where they are. You need to address the one thing in retirement to me that's the most important, and that's income. Where's your income going to come from? How long is it going to last? And is it dependent upon what happens in the stock market? Because if it is, that can be problematic. Folks, give me a call. Let's walk through our process. Let's determine what your risk tolerance is, and let's build something that meets that and is congruent with your risk number. Give me a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to get started on your retirement income right now.
Philip Statler is with Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. You know that junk drawer in your kitchen? Does it ever remind you of your financial plan? We'll talk about how you can get your plan in order coming up next.
Weddings, sports, vacations. Just about everything this year has been pushed back, shortened, or canceled. Now think about your retirement. You can't cancel it. You probably don't want to shorten it, but do you need to push it back? Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can help make sure your retirement dreams are still on track. Philip and his team have been helping families just like yours retire no matter what the situation is for more than 20 years. They can help design a plan so that whenever you are ready to retire, your retirement is there waiting for you. Take control of your retirement today. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team. Do it now, 863-285-3815. Don't cancel, shorten, or push back your retirement dreams. Plan now so you can do all the things you've always wanted to do when you want to do them. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Will the presidential election results impact your retirement? Find out with a free guide from Philip Statler at StatlerFinancial.com. That's StatlerFinancial.com. Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here alongside Philip Statler. He's president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to learn a little bit more. We all have that one drawer in our home, the junk drawer. Now, Philip, you and I were joking during the break. We actually have more than one junk drawer.
You just have one, Jen?
I have several.
I'm impressed if you only have one junk drawer.
Yeah, I have one for myself, and that ends up having recipes that I've printed out and coupons and the types of stuff that I need in the kitchen. My kids have one, and that's where there is a supply of batteries and all the little, bits and pieces that they end up with, but I don't want them digging in my junk drawer. So not that it's any neater, but it's mine. But with the junk drawer, the concept, right? You have all this stuff that you need, but it ends up being a mess. It ends up being a disaster. You can't find anything. It just needs to be organized. And I wonder, Philip, if there are people who come to you and they think they have a plan, but what you see is just kind of a financial junk drawer. And it's not that everything needs to be thrown away, but it maybe needs to be organized a little bit.
That's true. I mean, so often I sit down with folks and they'll say, yeah, I've got a plan. I'm taking money from here. I'm going to take money from there. And when I actually sit down and start looking at what they have, it's not a plan. There's nothing drawn on paper. There's nothing that says, okay, in 5 years, I'm going to start taking from this bucket, or I'm going to start taking from this account. It's just haphazard. And so we have a lot of financial products, mutual funds, variable annuities, regular annuities. We have a money market account, but there's no plan in place as to what the process is of when and where and what we're drawing off of those different accounts over time.
And I think that is a really good point right there, Philip. We do a lot of thinking about this. We have some ideas, but we don't always know what truly goes into having a plan. Talk a little bit about the first step to getting ourselves organized. So what we have is functional in retirement. So we are understanding when we're going to be taking money out of different accounts, or what it makes sense to do with certain areas of our money.
Absolutely. And let's kind of take a step back here just a minute, Jim, because the first thing we need to find out is how much income do you need? That's kind of important when we're trying to put together that income plan. And so we need to figure out what the gap is, and then we can figure out how to fill that gap. So the first step in kind of getting organized of everything is figuring out what we need. Then we can look at the junk drawer, right? We can look at all the different things we have and determine how they function in retirement, how we can use them, what areas may that work and where might it not work? Are there things that we can keep and things we may need to get rid of? And so we just first analyze everything we have to determine how it could fit into an income plan.
And Philip, if we do already have some of these things, maybe we have an annuity, maybe we have some different insurance policies, a lot of people do, is it possible to make changes with those things if you make a determination that maybe we don't have things set up quite right?
Yes and no. So there are, we analyze the different things, different products, different things they have in their junk drawer, right, to determine what can and can't be used. And sometimes you have things that we may need to get rid of, but there's fees or expenses that we would incur if that were to happen. And so I tell people, look, we're going to look at everything you have. We're going to try to decide which things will work for you for income and which things won't. And the things that won't work, we're going to look to see how best we can use those to provide income. And maybe the answer is we can't. And so we have to find alternatives. And so if a product no longer meets your financial objectives and it won't work, then we have to look at what other options are out there and whether or not it's worth making the change to a different system or a different philosophy for that specific tool that may be there. Or maybe we find a way to hold on to it until we can make better use of it. So there's different alternatives there. But the big thing is as we look at planning for your retirement income, is finding out what's there. First, we have to build a plan. So even though we may have this junk drawer of stuff, right? We have to build a plan and then figure out what from that junk drawer we use in the plan and what can't we use. And that's really the step one. So do you know what you have in your junk drawer that could be used for your income plan? You don't have a clue what's in the junk drawer. Yeah, right. I mean, you don't. It's a junk drawer. So you have stuff. It's supposed to work for your retirement, but you're not sure exactly how all the parts are supposed to work together. That's what I do. That's my job, is to educate, put together a plan, educate again on how the plan works, and then take where we are and migrate and transition to that income plan that's going to provide you the income that you're going to need throughout retirement. Give me a call. Let's start that process today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to take a look at your portfolio to determine what your income plan might look like.
That number one more time, 863-285-3815 to reach Philip Statler with Statler Financial Services. And I am Jen Rezac alongside. Philip, when people are putting their plans for retirement together, and a lot of times what we do, we have our 401ks and we have some different savings. We might have some life insurance and some other accounts and policies. How many times do people have all of these things put together, but then they overlook things like, what am I going to have to pay in taxes when I start taking money out of these things? I mean, is that something that gets overlooked?
It is until they take out too much money and they have to file their tax return.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then they get a rude awakening, right? So too often we overlook the tax impact of pulling money out of our retirement accounts. And so, we're very cognizant of that and really try our best when we're putting together an income plan to make it as tax efficient as possible. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes that's not easy to do because all of everybody's money is in those retirement accounts. So, hey, if we want more, then we end up having to pay more in taxes. And so, but we look at that, we analyze that, we explain and educate that to folks so they know, hey, look, what you're going to do is going to be tax inefficient, and there may be a better way of doing it. And so I tell all my clients, if you need money for something, don't just assume we're going to take it out of this account. Mm-hmm. Call me. That's what I'm here for, is to make sure that when we take money out of accounts, we do it in the most tax efficient method possible. And so that's what we want to do is do our best to be tax efficient.
And Philip, this is something that's near and dear to your heart because this is actually what helped you get into retirement planning. You started out helping people with their taxes, and you started to notice some trends with what was going on with tax preparation versus tax planning. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Exactly. I would see that all the time when I would sit down and do people's tax return. The thing about being a tax guy is you're always looking in the rearview mirror. It's always stuff that's already happened, and it's too late to fix stuff. And so I wanted to be on the front end because people get mad on the back end, right? You got to call them and say, hey, you owe this big tax bill. Had you done it this way, well, why didn't you tell me? Well, because you didn't come sit down with me and allow me that opportunity to explain a more tax efficient manner of doing it. So I started saying, okay, look, I need to get on the front end of this deal. Mm-hmm. I need to be helping people plan for their retirement, plan for their income in retirement, and be able to be a little bit more tax specific and more tax efficient for my clients.
And just talk a little bit, Philip, about that idea of getting a second opinion here as well, because I think that goes hand in hand with what you're talking about. Someone like you who looks at things like our tax liabilities in retirement and helping with that tax planning, who can look at the income side of things, not just the accumulation side, which is what a lot of people are focused on before they get to retirement. Talk a little bit about that idea of getting a second opinion from someone who does nothing but retirement.
Well, and that's so true, right? That's our specialty. That's what we look at. That's what we do day in and day out is create retirement income plans. And so we know that like the back of our hand, and so the person that helped you get to where you are today, they did a great job. They did what they're supposed to do. But if they're not doing the other side of it, they're not doing retirement income planning day in and day out, for 90% of their clients, then they're going to miss something. There's not going to be, there's going to be something there that's not taken care of. And that's what I focus on is creating that income plan for folks when they get ready to retire. And so that's to me, you can't live without income. And so I want my clients to know that what happens in the market, what we've seen, the ups and downs and the volatility, that doesn't affect their income. And too often when I meet with people, that's not the case with their situation. The ups and downs in the stock market does have or play a part in their income situation. And so my clients, I want to be able to say, look, your income's your income. It's not predicated upon what happens in the stock market. It's not affecting the end result of your portfolio. And so that gives them that kind of peace of being able to sleep better at night, knowing that all this herky-jerkiness in the market is not affecting their income. And so that's why I think it's important that you get a second opinion from somebody that is their focus, is income planning, retirement income planning, making sure that you're taken care of. Hey, look, we've talked a lot about income because that's what we do here at Statler Financial. That and making sure you don't have too much risk in your portfolio. Give me a call and let's start the process. Let's just start a conversation about where you are, where you need to get to. Call me at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Give me a call today and let's start the conversation of retirement planning. 863-285-3815.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
If you owe $26.5 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, what would you need to do? Well, you'd need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $26.5 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels. It doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services know what to look for. Plan now. Philip can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 863-285-3815 to set up a visit with Philip Statler and Statler Financial Services. When taxes go up, will you be ready? 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Statler Financial Services may not give tax advice.
Thanks for joining us today. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. I am Jen Rezac, happy to be here with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. I know a lot of people have questions, and Philip, you certainly get questions from people all the time. You deal with questions from me every week for like an hour, so let's change it up and get some questions from other people, right? And as a matter of fact, actually, you do a couple of virtual events now. Aren't you doing kind of a question and answer session on a pretty regular basis now?
We are.
Okay.
We're trying to do 2 times a month. Right now, I've got them scheduled for Fridays.
Okay.
And so we'll continue to monitor attendance and we're playing with it, trying to figure out exactly what meets the most people's needs.
Okay.
And they always go to our website.
Yeah.
StatlerFinancial.com under the events tab. And there's a registration link there that they can register.
Okay, good deal. So you can find the next one coming up there at StatlerFinancial.com. Good place to get started. And I'll throw out the phone number as well. 863-285-3815 is the way you can reach Philip if you just want to get him on the phone and ask him a couple of questions there on the phone. But right now, we are going to hear some of those commonly asked retirement questions. We went out, we wanted to find out what people in this area wanted to know about retirement. So, Philip, let's take a listen here. Our first question today comes from Norman.
What's a Roth conversion, and how do I know if I should do one or not?
So that's a good question, Norman. And so a Roth conversion is where you have your IRA, which has been tax deferred. You've never paid tax on that money. And so you do a Roth conversion, you convert that IRA or a portion of it. You don't have to do an all or nothing. You can segregate out. We do that sometimes. We'll take 10,000, 15,000 and convert it. So you convert it to a Roth. Now, when you do that, it's a taxable event. So that means you have to pay tax on that money that you converted to a Roth. So you might say the downside is I got to pay tax. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't do it, I don't have to pay tax. But the upside, the potential is that it will now grow tax-free until you need to take money out of it. And then you take it out, it's tax-free money. You never have to pay taxes on that money. And so there's a lot of things that it can, it can also affect, and you have to be careful. And people have done this and accidentally caused themselves some trouble, because when you do that Roth conversion, like I said, it's income. So if you're already taking Medicare, right, it can cause your Medicare Part B premiums to skyrocket because that's income based. A lot of people don't realize that. It can also affect your Medicare Part D, your prescription drug plan. It's income based. And so if you hit a certain level, then your premium is going to go up. And that can be an unexpected consequence that you have to walk through and make sure that you're within kind of that parameter too. Now, I said you could do that with your IRA. There are some 401ks that have Roth provisions that will allow you to do the same thing within the 401k body itself.
All right. Good question, Norman. Thanks for reaching out. And again, 863-285-3815 is the way you can get on the phone with Philip directly with your questions. 863-285-3815 is where you can reach the team at Statler Financial Services. Let's go to Marilyn's question now, Philip. Here's what she would like to know.
I've worked at several different companies over the years, all of which offered a 401k plan. So I have several different 401ks. What should I do with them?
Yeah, that's a good question, Marilyn, because typically that is what happens, right? People have different 401ks. Nobody stays at the same company for very long anymore. So we have different 401ks out there. Matter of fact, I met with some folks, some relatively new clients of mine that are actually in that situation right now. We're in the process of consolidating 401ks for them. So what is it? Why would you want to do that? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. One is that you don't have control. You can't use, they don't have all the tools that you may need within that 401k. So by moving it to an IRA, now we have more tools available that we can use within that 401k or within the IRA now to better manage that portfolio. Now, it's not always better to move your money from your 401k to the IRA. A lot of times it can be more costly. The fees may be more outside of the 401k than they are inside the 401k. So you have to weigh that out, right? Is it worth it because I get better tools, more tools than if I stay in the IRA? And that's kind of what you have to, or the 401k. So that's really what you kind of got to weigh out there.
All right. Thanks for asking that question, Marilyn. This is our Man on the Street segment on the Statler Financial Radio Show. We went out, we took our mics out on the street to find out what the questions are that you have for Philip. We're having him answer them here on the air. Our next question, Philip, comes from Katie. We ran into Katie, and here's her question.
I'm in my mid-50s. When do I need to start getting serious about planning for retirement? 6 months before I want to retire? 5 years? I hear it talked about often, but it's always so vague.
So, Katie, here's what you need to do. You're in your mid-50s. It's time. It's time to do it right now. You are basically, for all intensive purposes, you're probably 7 to 10 to 12 years out from retirement, depending upon your circumstances. So it is time now to start that process, to start looking at your portfolios, your 401ks, make sure that you've got the allocations properly so that if we have another market downturn, it doesn't affect your timetable of when you want to retire. I can't stress enough that your mid-50s is the time to start that process. It doesn't mean if you're in your mid-60s, it's too late. We need to get that lined up for you so we can put together that kind of income plan so you know what the target is that you need to shoot for, Katie. And that's what we're here to help folks do.
All right, let's do one more question here. This is our Man on the Street segment. We went out to find out some of those commonly asked retirement questions. Here's the last one. This is what Shirley would like to know.
I'm getting close to my 70th birthday, and my son-in-law told me that I'd have to start taking a certain amount of money out of my retirement account soon. Is that true?
Shirley, That used to be true, but it changed. You are lucky, and you get to wait until you're 72 now before you have to start taking money out of your IRA. That was passed right at the end of 2019, called the Secure Act. So it changed your required minimum distribution time frame. So if you turn 70 and a half after January 1st, 2020, now you don't have to take that RMD until you're 72 years old. So that's a great thing for you. It gives you some more time. You don't have to start taking money out right now. Hey, as we kind of wind up, I want to go back to our financial x-ray and why I think it's so important. Because the financial x-ray is a starting point. It gives you an idea of where you are right this minute. Let me ask you something, Jen. If I said, hey, I want to take a trip to Franklin, North Carolina, you and I are both going to take a trip. So how would you get there?
Oh, well, I guess I would have to do a little research. I'd have to get on my GPS and see for sure about the route. But North Carolina?
Would it take you and I the same amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to want to walk. I'm thinking depending on where you are, you're going to fly or maybe you're going to drive,
let's face it. People know you're in the Midwest, right? I'm in Florida. So it would not take us the same amount. But to determine how long it would take us to get there or how we would get there, we need to know where we're going to start from.
Right.
Because the way I would go is definitely not the same way you would go.
Sure.
Right. So it's important to know where we're starting from. Folks, retirement is no different. You need to know where you're starting from in order to know how to get to where you want to be. And so that's why I developed the financial x-ray, because we need to know where you're starting at. And the only way is to dissect your current portfolio to make sure that it lines up with your risk tolerance, to make sure that you're both in the same spot. And too often, that is not what I see. Do you know exactly how much risk you have in your portfolio? Most of the folks I sit down with don't have a clue. They trust their advisor to have them in the right spot based on their risk tolerance. Let me just tell you that 90% of the time, that is not the case when I run the numbers. So how do you know for sure? Schedule a second opinion, get our financial x-ray. That's how you'll know if you're where you need to be. Give me a call right now and let's start that process of our financial x-ray and second opinion. Give me a call. That number one more time is 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815, or you can go to our website, statlerfinancial.com, and you can actually go to my calendar and set yourself an appointment right there. Either way, don't procrastinate. Let's get started today. 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.